All right, everybody. Hi. So I'm here at the EU delegation with a good friend and colleague, Mr. Philippe Vialatte, or Dr. Vialatte.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a doctor, right?
Yeah, because I'm a vet by first training.
Right, exactly. Because the other day we had an event together here at the delegation, the Forum for European Researchers, and there was actually quite a bit of agricultural researchers and so on, your colleagues from your old life, right? Mm. So. Normally the science counselors, not normally, but in a lot of cases, the science counselors are actually have a background in science and so on. So we had doctors with us before, and Philippe is an example of that. So this event, the Forum for European Researchers, that happened during the European Research and Innovation Days, has been talked about a lot in our last videocast for June that we did, but this time I wanted to kind of use the track that we were on to catch Philippe and try to talk to him a little bit about sort of the state of affairs when it comes to collaboration between China and Europe in science and technology collaborations and cooperation. And I could hardly be more timely when it comes to that, because Philippe is about to leave China. Yeah. But so I need to make sure that I do it before Friday. Yeah. Otherwise, otherwise I'll never get that chance again, I think. And you know, later better than sooner better than later, because Philippe has been on and off in China since when? When did you come originally?
Well, I started working with China in 26, when I joined DG Research after almost 20 years working for development issues, and a long part of that time I was posted in Africa, and I worked in Mali, in Central Africa Republic, in Burundi and Kenya. And then I went to DG Development at the time in Brussels, and after a few years there, I was proposed to move to DG Research. Mm. So this was in 2006, and I was asked to work on Asia, so the whole Asia at the time, which was quite a lot of work. And then India, of course, and Japan and Korea and China. And then progressively I concentrated on China and Japan. And then I came here for the first time in 2010 in this position of science counsellor at the EU delegation. Then I went back for another 4 years in Brussels at the Directorate for International Cooperation in DG Research, and I came back in 2018, and as you said, I'm about to leave now.
So it's been the better half of a decade already. This is 2021 now, for those that are watching this in the future. He's been here on and off since 2010. And I have to say that we are extremely lucky to have such dedicated public servants with us here in China. It is very important that the work that is going on, all the researchers, both Chinese and Europeans, that are involved in the collaboration and so on, they really, really depend on people like Philippe and other people in this community of member states and the European Union to make sure that the environment and so on is as it is. And we have a lot of things to thank you. And also your access. Our project here would be impossible if it was not for the fact that we have amazing support from the European delegation. We had this really, really good experience working together with you over, I think, probably the whole time since you were here in 2010, right? We've always been working together.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I worked with two of your predecessors.
Right.
And let me also thank you for your very active participation in what we do and what we do also with the member states. In particular, we very much appreciate your participation in our in the events of the tour of China, of the stakeholders tour of China, where you present very brightly your access, of course, but also the Marie Curie schemes, which are very important for the audience that we meet during these events. So it has been a great pleasure to work with Euraccess all these years. We have always very well coordinated our actions, and we did a lot of positive things together. And let me also underline the participation of the member states and the work we have been doing with them to better coordinate our activities and their activities. Over the last years, we have created some working groups to go into more details in some areas of common interest. One of those is urbanization, for example, but also agriculture. So this is a very positive development, and again, thank you for participating in these endeavors as well.
These events have been very, very useful for everybody, I think. When we do the tour of China, we go and meet Chinese researchers all over Europe, and we normally do it with the member states as well and introduce them, etc. But one of the big things that we've always thought,
and with the member states, but also with the countries associated to the framework program.
As well as the associated countries.
There are now 27 member states, plus the 16 countries associated. And many of them are extremely active in our groups and working groups.
Well, let's not forget, yeah, and
Iceland in particular.
Exactly, example of that. And they all, like the member states as well as the associated countries, all belong to the European research area. Yeah. And that is one of the things that we've been interested in, a concept that we want to introduce to the Chinese, because if you want to engage with these programs, you need to understand on what level it happens, and that is the level where it happens. And the big, I guess, the big thing that this has all been sort of centered around is Horizon 2020. And I have to say, since I started doing the job for the Euraccess China, Horizon 2020 has been the big thing. And because we're talking about the tour of China, when we do the tour of China, we are also introducing the member states and so on, because if you want to participate in the research framework program of the European Union, Horizon 2020, you do it through the member states. So that's why we're all there and we're doing this together. But while I have to say this has been my whole career, Horizon 2020, when you came here in 2010, that was still the old framework program. You were here at the beginning of Horizon 2020, right?
Yeah, it was already FP7 at the time.
Right.
When I arrived in 2010.
Yeah, we just launched Horizon Europe recently, but we were discussing earlier how you were actually here when we launched Horizon 2020, right?
Yeah, we launched Horizon 2020 with a big event with a Deputy Director General in one of the hotels in Beijing. And this was the first half of 2014,
right,
before I left. Yeah. And it was quite a change between Horizon 2020 and the previous framework program. For Chinese researchers, because in the previous framework program we used to fund the Chinese participations in our project, but with Horizon 2020 this was discontinued, not only for China but also for Brazil, India, Russia and Mexico, and so from the beginning of Horizon 2020, Chinese entities participating in our project should come with their own resources or find funds from any other source. And it was very important at that time that the Ministry of Science and Technology, but also NSFC and MIIT mobilize co-funding mechanisms to fund Chinese entities participating in some of the projects, but maybe we can come to this later. But that was a very important element that changed radically the approach.
Yeah, I mean, like at this point in time, I think we're all kind of used to this being the case. But I guess because 2014, you've already been in China for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
This was not the case when you came here originally. So there must have been a big transition for the collaboration to go through that. But as far as I know, that turned out okay, right? The collaboration has been going up. What is sort of the main achievements during Horizon 2020?
Overall, so Horizon 2020 was implemented between 2014 and the end of 2020. Through this program, we funded about 32,000 different projects, and we recorded about 160,000 participation from different entities from all over the world. And at that time, the philosophy of the program was the famous 3 O's of our commissioner at that time. It was open science, open innovation, and open to the world. And so the framework program was open to the participation of the whole world, and it became a very important dimension of this program. And again, thanks to the CFM, the co-funding mechanism which was set up by the Chinese authorities, China has been our #2 partner after the US in terms of participation. So we recorded about 600 participation from Chinese entities in Horizon 2020 projects in about 260 projects. So it was quite a lot of excellent achievement. Also, in particular, because we decided, both sides together, to focus our cooperation in 5 areas of high interest for China and for Europe. So we call them flagship initiatives, and we had the flagship initiative on food and agriculture, on aviation, on urbanization, on surface transport, and on biotechnologies for health and the environment. And 3 of these flagship initiatives were co-funded by MOST, aviation co-funded by MIIT, and NSFC co-funded Chinese entities participating in the projects related to biotechnologies for health and the environment. So without this co-funding, I think we would not have reached such a participation of Chinese entities in the projects. We have also designed with our Chinese colleagues a very good system, I think, to make sure that the topics that we have chosen and to co-fund were of high interest for Europe and for China. For example, involving private companies in the aviation flagship initiative, so to make sure that on both sides the topics that were retained were at least useful for the industry of both sides. But the CFM worked pretty well. Of course, there's always margin for improvement, and this is what one of the topics we will discuss in the coming months with the Ministry of Science and Technology in particular.
Yeah. So yeah, this has been the big thing for the last 7 years.
Yes.
During Horizon 2020.
Yep.
It's 2021 now, so Horizon 2020 is already passed, as the name indicates. So you were there at the beginning. You were also there in the preparation phase of Horizon 2020. But now you're also at the beginning of a new framework program, Horizon Europe, right? And sort of following the successes of Horizon 2020, we can, I imagine we can still, and we'll still keep evolving and so on. So what do you foresee to be sort of the future scope of collaboration between China and the European Union within Horizon Europe?
So I mentioned before that between FP7 and Horizon 2020 there is this change in the funding of Chinese entities, which was an important step to be overcome. And the second important moment, I think, happened quite recently. It was a communication issued by the Commission on the 18th of May 2021, which is a dedicated communication to research and innovation and international cooperation. And this document so designs a new strategy and express some principles along which we want to work with China in research and innovation cooperation. And in particular, it talks a lot about a more balanced cooperation based on reciprocity, but also on transparency, on openness, on ethics and integrity standards, and overall a level playing field. In other words, we would very much like to continue working with China in research and innovation, of course, but along these principles, and that's another turning point in our approach to international cooperation with China in research and innovation. And this will be translated in a joint roadmap, which is also mentioned in this communication of the 18th of May. And this joint roadmap has been under discussion for some time already with our Chinese colleagues. It will be based on two main pillars, one about the future priority areas for cooperation, and the other one will be dealing with what we call the framework conditions to make this collaboration based on the principles I just mentioned before. So we have been talking about a list of 13 framework conditions on which we will discuss with our Chinese colleagues in the spirit of an overall collaboration between Europe and China in research and innovation, meaning that, of course, on our side, all the directorate generals involved in a way or another in these framework conditions will be part of the discussion, and we expect that the Chinese side also involves all the ministries which are participating in these topics linked to the framework conditions. Some are obviously under the remits of DG Research and most, but others are outside these remits. If we take standards, or if we take intellectual property rights, for example, they are dealt on our side by DG Trade, by DG Grow, and others, and on the Chinese side by other ministries and other organizations. So this is this comprehensive discussions that we are aiming for, I hope soon, to put our collaboration in research and innovation in a global framework to make it beneficial for both sides, and in a position to contribute to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, but also to help us deal with all these major challenges that we are facing, being climate change, being loss of biodiversity, and of course health. And the COVID crisis gave us a lot of lessons that we should learn from this crisis. So this is the way we expect now to work with China, and that's a major task for my successor, who will arrive hopefully very soon.
It is indeed a major task. And like you said, it's ongoing, and it involves a lot of excellent people from a lot of different directions that all need to work together. And that is very, how to say, we should be thankful for that fact, because as far as I understand, you're now going to be passing the job to somebody else, right? The idea is to make sure that this collaboration in research and innovation serves the overall objectives that we have in Europe and China as in China, but we have also in common for our planet. And I think this framework is very coherent with what we created in 2013, which is the Innovation Cooperation Dialogue, which was putting on one side of the table all the commissioners dealing with innovation, and on the other side of the table all the Chinese ministers dealing with innovation in a way or another. And this is this kind of the spirit that we would like now to work on, to make sure that, again, research and innovation is part of this overall framework to serve our objective, Chinese objectives, the SDGs, climate change, and so on. So, all right, I know that you're very busy these days preparing the move, etc. Only 1.5 days ahead of you, so I'm not going to keep you a lot longer. I might just ask you, what is next for Philippe Vialatte?
What is next is what I promised my wife to do, is not to work anymore. I think I have worked quite a lot over the last, 43 years when I was, after I was graduated. We are very lucky to have a large family, and in particular 4 grandchildren, so that will be a lot of work for us. And I hope we will. I have promised my wife to dedicate my time to her and to our family.
I'm sure that is deserved for all parties involved. Well, on behalf of Euraccess, and I think on behalf of everybody that has been involved in this work over the last few years, as well as the scientists here that you guys have been serving, I think I just want to thank you so much for all your support, all your great work, etc. You are not kidding when you say that it's been a lot of work. I know that firsthand that is the case. So a lot of the important things in this world, they happen behind sort of the scene, and Philippe has been one of the people that is running around a lot, making sure that these things are going on. And I want to make sure that you know that this is something that we really appreciate. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and let me maybe conclude by again thanking you, Aldo, and your predecessor for the work we have done together. I would like to thank also the science counsellors of the member states and the associated countries, because we have worked together very closely, in particular over the last years. And of course I would like all the European researchers who have mobilized themselves on any occasion that when we call on them, and the last one you mentioned was our Research and Innovation Days in Beijing, and also of course all our Chinese colleagues and friends who have been working very closely together. I think I can say we have also established a friendship with many of them. So it's a lot of very good memories over the last 15 years that I've been working with China. And that would not have been possible, of course, to do anything and achieve anything without the support and the work of all these fantastic partners. So thanks to all, and I take you all in my heart for my retirement.
Agreed. So
thank you.
thank you, Philippe.
Thank you, Aldo.